Hello everyone. In this final session of week 3, what we are going to do is bring everything together and make it into a project. So we have already seen how we can initiate a Git repository into a local folder and then finally connect it with a remote repository. In the previous session, we have also seen how to set up a node project into a local machine and then work with it. In this session, what we are going to do is bring it all together and connect everything so that you know the complete flow of an application. So what I'm going to do is create a node project into my local machine and then track it using Git and then also push the code to the remote repository. So for that, we are going to go to GitHub. This time, instead of creating a local repository first using Git init, what I'm going to do is directly create a remote repository on my GitHub profile and then see how I can go to the local repository or the local machine. So what I'm going to do first is I will create a new repository here. The process remains the same. You have to click on plus here and then click on new repository. Here I will be writing my first node app. So this is going to be the name of my repository. So description will be, this is my first node app tracked with Git. Alright, I will keep the repository public because this is for the reference also. This time I'm going to add a readme file. So when I click on this readme file, what it will do is when a repository is going to get created, it will create a predefined readme file along with this. The content of the readme file is going to be the description. So we'll see that. Now if I click on create repository, so what it does is it creates a readme file which is going to be in the markdown format. This file has the heading as the same of the repository name followed by the description that we have given. Alright, and it has the readme file from the beginning. Okay, what is important to us at this point is go to the code, click on code, and then get the HTTPS link for this. Now, once I have the HTTP link into this, what I'm going to do is I will clone this repository into my local folder. When you do that, you don't need to initiate a Git repository or initiate an empty Git repository into the machine. The second thing that you don't need to do is set up a remote. So when you clone a project, the remote is already set into the project because we are already providing the HTTPS link. Firstly, secondly, you don't need to initiate a Git with an empty repository because when I clone this, the repository itself tracked with Git will be cloned into the application, into the local folder. To do that, what I'm going to do is I'll go to the local folder that I'm going to work with and open VS Code. So to open VS Code, I'll write cmd into the address tab, and then finally, once the command prompt opens, I will write code space dot. Alright, so now what it will do is it will open the VS Code into the same folder that I'm working with. Now what I'm going to do is just open the terminal here itself, or the bash terminal I'll open here itself, and I will write the command git clone followed by the URL. So when I do that, what happens is the entire repository is cloned into my local machine, and you can see the folder itself directly created. So I don't need to create a folder and then initiate it as an empty repository. So when I open this, you can see that there is a readme file. Alright, now this forms the basis of my application, and my entire application setting up the node and everything will happen here. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I will open the command prompt terminal also because I'll be running the node part there, and everything related to Git will happen here. I'll open a new terminal and open command prompt. Now to create a node project within this my first node app folder, what I'm going to do is navigate into the folder first. So I'll write cd and then hit tab and one more tab to get to the folder. Once this is done, I will write npm init. So when I do npm init, what it will do is create the package name with the name exactly same as that of the folder. In my case, it is going to be fine. So I'll just hit enter for the version. So this is node app tracked with Git. The entry point is going to be index.js. Test command I'm not going to put anywhere. So there is a Git repository already noted here since the Git has already been initiated into this application. I'll keep the keyword as it is. Author, let us do IIT Madras. Hit enter. finally hit enter. So now you can see that I have the complete repository created, and this is going to be the package.json. If everything is fine, you can just write yes and hit enter. So when you do that, what has happened is this package.json created. Alright, now it is time to install the dependencies that I will need for this project. To install the dependencies, what I will do is I will write npm install followed by the package name. In this case, I'm going to use Axios because I will be making a request or HTTP request to some endpoints and fetch data. So in our case, it is going to be Axios. So it is the final command is npm install Axios. Okay. So when the package is installed, you can see that two things has happened. One is the package.log.json has been created. Package.json has already been created once the project is set up, and then finally the node modules have been created. All these three folders are now untracked. Alright, so if I want to check whether these folders are tracked or not, I can go to bash terminal and check git status. To see the status of the repository, I'll first get into the repository. So I'll write cd, I'll write my first, then hit tab and it will give you the node tab. Alright, now that I'm in the repository, I can just do a git status. Alright, so you can see that the folder node modules, package.log.json and package.json is not being tracked. Alright, now the thing is, if you look at the node modules folder here, there are multiple subfolders created within it, with each folder having again subfolders and multiple files. I don't want to track all these things, or I don't want the Git to note all these things or track all these things, because what is important for this project is the package.json and all the files that I'm going to create for the project. Node modules as such is just a package manager or the manager of this project that takes care of all the modules that are required in the project and the dependencies that are required in the project. I don't need to track them because every time I do an npm install, node modules will be created by itself. So I don't want to track it. So in order to not track it and I want Git to ignore it, what we do is we create a file called as git ignore. To do that, what we are going to do is we will write touch dot git ignore. So what it does is it creates a file called git ignore. Alright, now whatever I put inside this file will be ignored by the grid and will not be tracked. Alright, so what I want to ignore is firstly the node module. So I'll write slash node hyphen modules. So the moment I save this, you can see that the node modules is not being shown anything. So there is no U shown here, nothing is shown. This means the Git is completely ignoring this node modules folder, right? Whereas I want to track the package.log.json and package.json. If I want to see what is being tracked and what is the current status of file, I can again write git status. So you can see that the git ignore is being tracked, package.log.json is being tracked, and package.json is being tracked. But there is no mention of node modules because when I mention it into git ignore, the git completely ignores it as if it is not there, right? So once everything is done, what I'll do is I'll add this to the staging area. So how do we do that? Git add hyphen a. Alright, so you can see that now all these packages files and the git ignore file is now converted into A because they are now added to the staged area. So what I'm also going to do is make the first commit. So I'll write git commit hyphen m initial commit. Okay, and what is happening in the initial commit? Node app initialized. Okay, as mentioned before, the commit message can be as intuitive as possible so that whenever you come back to the commit, you know what exactly has happened into this commit. Alright, so the moment I made a commit, I can also put this code back to the remote repository. To do that, what I'll do is push it back to the remote repository. Before that, I will also check whether the remote is set or not, right? So what we do, git remote hyphen v. Alright, so you can see when I clone the repository, I don't need to explicitly mention the remote or the origin. Why? Because the origin is already set the moment I clone the repository, right? So the main thing that I need to do is simply do a git push. So it will be going to be git push origin. I'm going to push to the origin, that is this endpoint, and secondly I will write the branch. right? So I want to push it to the main branch. Okay, now I'll again go to the GitHub UI and tell you and show you what exactly happened. Alright, so in the GitHub UI, initially it was not having anything except the README file. Now if I just refresh this, alright, if I just refresh this, you can see all the files that are newly added have been put here, except the node modules file, right? So we don't have the node modules, we don't need to have the node modules in the remote repository, right? Because let's say if somebody clones this project later, they can simply get ahead into the project and simply write npm install. Doing that will itself install the packages and create the node module folder. So I no need to track it. Alright, let us go back to the VS Code. Once the files and everything have been attached, let me open package.json and show you what exactly is there, right? So everything that was set before the application was created is here. What has externally added is this dependency, right? So this dependency tells you that what packages we have at this point, right? What we are going to do now is create index.js file. So I'll do it within the my first node app, right? Index.js. Okay, so we can minimize this for a minute and then focus on this part. Right, so what we are going to do here is make a fetch request to a API or an API resource that has given some dummy data. We have been using JSON API, JSON placeholder API for our demonstration. I will be doing the same, but let us see what we are going to use now. Alright, so for that what I'll do is I'll go to the browser and go to JSON placeholders website. Alright, if I scroll down, what I see is the various resources that it provides. In this case, in the demonstration, what we are going to do is use this endpoint now, right? So it is going to be /users, everything with the home and base URL plus the /user endpoint, right? So we are going to use that. So I'm going to use the Axios module for that, and hence I need to first require it or import it into my application. So what I'm going to do is use this word Axios equals to require Axios. All right. Once this is done, Axios package is imported and then can be used with this variable. All right. So what I can do is I can write Axios dot get, because I'm going to do a get method. I will provide the get method followed by the URL. So what is going to be the URL? It is going to be https://JSON placeholder dot typecode dot com/users, right? So this is going to be my endpoint, and there is no request body along with this. This is the only thing that I'm going to do. So this will be followed by a then, right? Because what axios.get does is it will return a promise. If you want to see that, I can simply log it into a variable and then show you, right? So okay, let us do that. So what I'll do is I will write const response equals to, right? Const response equals to Axios. All right, and then finally we will log this. So it is going to be console.log, and then you simply log the response. All right. Once you do that, how do we run index.js into the terminal? So we'll open the terminal, that is, we'll go to the terminal, that is command prompt, and simply write node index.js. Very similar to how would we run a Python file by writing python app.py, python abc.py, right? So very similar to that, we'll write node space index.js. Right, so what it did, it returned a promise, right? And as expected, what Axios does is it returns a promise. Now since this is a promise which is pending, what I need to do is I need to resolve it. To resolve it, I'll be using a then block, right? Now when I resolve it, I don't need to store this promise into a variable. I can simply resolve it by using then. So right, dot then. All right, so I will catch that response here. Okay, and once the response is caught, I can simply write console.log response. All right, now if there is any error, this error will be called by .catch block. So we'll catch the error like this: error Okay, and then finally mention the error here. So I can write console dot error and simply log the error. And I can make it some more intuitive like this, error, and then finally we'll write the error like this. So we'll put this in backticks because we want to make this as a variable. Okay, finally, right? So when the error comes, it will be logged as error colon followed by the actual error that was caught, right? Now I don't need to log this response like this, okay, because it will be taken care of by the then block if the request is completely fine. Alright, so if I save this and then again go to my command prompt and run here and run node index.js, let's see what we get, right? So I will get the complete JSON object, which is going to be a list of users, right? So there are multiple other things that is returned with this JSON, okay? So this completely returns a response, entire response that the Axios sends, right? So there is the status code, there is status text, there are headers, Axios headers, there is pragma, connection, when does it expire, and multiple other information. What is important to us is the actual data, right? So I will try to fetch that. So if I scroll down, keep scrolling down, we want the actual data. Alright, so this is the data, right? So if I want to simply log the data, what I would write is response.data, right? Save this, and now if I go down, and for the simplicity, let me clear the console here. I'll write cls, right? I'll write node index.js. Take some time because it is a async request, but now you see everything else is gone, but what we are receiving is only the actual data that we read, right? So it is a list, or in fact it is an array of objects. Every object represents a user, so there is multiple other information. Now this information, since it is a JSON, this can be fetched and used by our front end. At this point we do not have a front end. We will be seeing a lot of front end development in the future, and that's how we can use this data, right? But at this point we should be aware that how do we create an index.js, and how do we write the code to it, how do we run it finally and get the data. All right, at this point I'm very sure that okay, this is completely fine, so I'll make a commit. So what I'll do, I'll go to my bash terminal where my GitHub is set up. All right, now if I see, once the index.js is created, it is untracked, right? So to make sure, or I will just show you the status first. So it is going to be git status. So when I do a git status, you will see that only index.js comes under untracked file, right? So let me track this. How do I track it? I write git add -a. All right. So now this is also being added to the staging area, and you can see that a. All right. Now I will commit this git commit -m. Again, a intuitive commit message. So it is like created index.js, right? So this is going to be our commit. All right, and finally we'll push this because it is always better to push minor changes so that you have the backup of the you have the exact backup of your files in the remote repositories also, right? So how do we do that? Git push origin name. All right, so it will make the insertions, it will push the data to the remote repository, which can be verified from the GitHub UI. So if I, all right, so if I go to the GitHub UI, you can see that when I refresh the code, I will see that there is an index.js file followed by the commit message that was done when index.js was pushed, right? So created index.js was the commit, and index.js is actually the index file that was created. All right. In all, in this repository, we have 3 commits. All right. What I'm going to do now is I'll try to check a feature, right? I will try to test something new into the code, but at this point, I'm not sure whether it is going to break the code or not, right? So the best way to test that is create a new branch and then make sure your feature is done, right? So what I'll do is I'll go back to the VS Code. All right, and to be able to make a new feature into a new branch, I'll first create a new branch, right? So I will write git branch, write feature app, and that's all. All right, so now I've created a new branch called feature app. what I'm going to do is in this feature is create a new file called app.js and make another fetch or Axios request there, right? So now if I want to move back, or if I want to get to the feature app, what I'll do is I'll write git checkout feature hyphen app. All right, so now I've switched to the feature app. Okay, at this point what I'm going to do is create a new file called app.js. All right, please note, since this is a feature app branch activated, all the changes that I do here will only be done in the feature app. They will not be featured into a main branch, right? So they will not show or get displayed into the main branch because they are still not in main branch. All the changes that I'm doing will happen in the feature app branch. All right, so now what I'm going to do is try to test another endpoint. So let me go to the JSON placeholder website again and see what I can fetch from there. All right, so there are other routes, right? So it will do a get method, it will do a post method, get post slash comments, then post ID, right? So all these are get method. There are some post method to the post, and there are some other methods to the post as well. So you can edit the post, you can patch the post, you can delete the post. All right, what I'm going to do is use this, right? So I will fetch a new endpoint that will give me one post, right? Or post of any one particular user. All right, so I'll go back to the VS Code again, and here I will make the call, right? So first we need to import Axios. Const Axios equals to require Axios. Once the Axios is required, what we can do is directly use it, right? So Axios dot get, what is going to be the endpoint? It is going to be https://JSON placeholder, pardon my spelling mistakes, JSON placeholder dot typecode dot com slash posts slash one, right? So this is going to fetch one single post into the application, right? Now we have done the fetch call. Now how do we resolve the promise? We will resolve it using dot or then. Dot then will catch the response into this variable called response. Okay, and then finally write console.log response dot data. Okay, I'm not sure if we have the data attribute in the response as at this point, so let us just log the response. Then we write dot catch if there is any error. Dot catch error console dot error, and then finally log the error. Same way we'll use, we write a custom error, so write error colon space followed by the variable error. So it's going to be $error. Okay, I think this should be fine. Let us save this. So when you save this, this will be an untracked file by the Git, but I will first test this. So I'll go to the CMD. Okay, and then I don't need this data at this point, so I will simply clear this. So to clear this, we'll write CLS. All right, now instead of running index.js, I'll run app.js. So it'll be node app.js. All right, so we got some data, but it is again going to be a very detailed data because the entire entire response object is returned here. All right, now I want to get back to that particular post. All right, yeah, so this is the post. This means there is this data attribute where I can fetch, right? So I'll write response dot data, save it, and finally make the request. All right, so you can see that okay, there is user ID1 title, and then finally the body of the particular post. Can we make it to the other endpoint, that is /post/2? Can we do that? Depends on what data we have at the backend, right? Yeah, so it does, right? So it basically returns the post with ID2, right? So the number here represents the post ID created by user with ID1, right? So there is the title and there is the body. Okay, so what is happening here is the change that I've done here, the app.js that I've created here is basically a part of feature-app branch only. It is not the part of main branch. Now let's say if I feel that, okay, this is fine and it can be now merged to the main branch, what I will do is, I will go to the git bash terminal and first I will track this particular file, right? So what I'm going to do is, I will write git add -a. Alright, git add -a. So you can see that the app.js is now being tracked, and now I'll commit it. Right, git commit -m, right, tested app.js with Axios, and it is tested. Okay, so I'll just write okay. Alright, so my, okay, what does it say? Alright, spelling mistake. Okay, so now I have the commit made, but this commit is only specific to this feature app. Alright, now if I want to merge this entire code to my original main branch, what I would do is I will first switch to main branch. How do I do that? Git checkout main. Alright, so now I'm to this main branch, and then if I want to merge the feature app branch, I will write git merge feature -app. Alright, so now you can see that my you can see that the main branch also has this app.js now. Initially it was not there when I switched, right? So you can check that, you can scroll back to the video and check that when I just switched to the main branch, it did not have app.js, but now when I merged it, now it has, right? So the code that is there with the feature app branch is exactly same as the code that we now have with the main branch. Alright, and finally when I want to make change, what I'm going to do is just push my code to the remote repository. So how do we do that? Git push origin main. Alright, so the entire code will now be on the remote repository. Let us check that. Alright, so you can see that when gitignore was created or readme.md was created, it is initial commit node app initialize, right? When the app.js is created, it is tested app.js with Axios, okay? Index.js was created with this. Unless and until I make some changes in the index.js and then commit, the index, this commit message will keep on showing as it is, right? So for example, if I update index.js in my local repository, commit it with the commit message updated index.js and then push it, it will then start showing updated index.js. Otherwise, it will keep on showing the most recent commit that was done in the particular file. Alright, so I hope this is clear. With this demonstration, what I've done is I've not only told you how to set up a Git repository in the local system. I've explained how you can clone the remote repository by creating a remote repository first, how you can clone it, how you can set up the Git project in your local repository, then how you can set up a node project into the same local repository, put in all the information in packet.json. Then I've explained how do you install packages into your node modules, into your node packages. How do you ignore node modules, because we do not need a node module file to be pushed, okay? Because in one of the sessions we have discussed that pushing a lot of files or pushing a very bulky folder is not a good thing for Git, right? It is not something that we want to track. Alright, what we want to track are mostly text-based files, and all these files like gitignore, md, app.js, index.js, which form the major basis of the application, should be pushed and tracked by the Git, not the node modules. Alright, finally, once the node modules are created, we created the application, tested index.js, pushed the code, then created a new branch, then created app.js, pushed the code back, and then finally merged the application into a one single main branch. Alright, once we are confirmed that the merge is complete, we then again finally push the code, right? So while creating a large project, when you create a back project with a complete backend, with a complete front end, this is how you keep on committing. This is how you're testing new features by creating new branch and then finally merging it into the main branch and then pushing it back to the remote repository. This is how you keep lot of snapshots of your application, lot of backup of your application, and what actually happens is you will not lose a single point of your application at any point in time. For example, if there is something wrong with your project folder. If something there is wrong with your system, if the system crashes for some reason, your local repository will be gone, but your remote repository will be safe, right? So this is how you should not only track your project with Git locally, but keep pushing your changes to the remote repository, so that not only others see it, but also you have a very good backup of it. All right. So with that, we will close, and I hope everything that was demonstrated in this session is crystal clear. If there are any doubts, we'll try to cover it in multiple sessions. Okay. Thank you.